He's a chill dude, doesn't freak out, and agrees to go into rehab that day. Now, this happens in mid-1991. It's not very successful, though, and he leaves rehab and is sober for a time.
Is that time the car ride from rehab to his dealer's house? Is that the time that he was sober?
Hello and welcome to another episode of 1001 Album Complaints. It's the show where lifelong friends, musicians, complainers, but most importantly, music fans tell the backstories of some of the most influential albums of all time, as chronicled in Robert Dimery's book, 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die. Now, if you don't know today's album super well or not at all, don't worry, we're going to guide you through it. We're going to play song clips, provide plenty of context as we dive into the backstory of this artist and album. And along the way, we're going to be breaking these songs down musically, culturally, to offer you both our praise, but also our nitpicky complaints as musicians. And at the end of all this, we're going to be voting on whether or not you actually need to hear this album before you die. Now, if you're a regular listener, welcome back. But if you're new to the podcast, I must provide you with our standard disclaimer. We're all musicians here, and we know how hard it is to put your ideas on tape and have nothing but love and respect for the craft. But we also enjoy nitpicking and complaining, as the title of our show suggests. None of us are super fans, but even if we were, we would still enjoy laughing about the way our favorite music gets made. All that to say, we're not going to be treating tonight's album or artist with any particular reverence. Instead, we're going to be talking some loving smack the way all musicians do on the van ride to the next gig when the radio plays literally any song ever recorded. My name is Adam. I've been playing music for 30 years and played professionally for a decade. And picture this. It's summer 1988. Iron Maiden was playing at the Seattle Center Coliseum with Guns N' Roses as the opening act. Now, every band needs a little luck, a little magic to hit it big. Well, the guitar player from tonight's band went to that show and managed to push his way through the crowd just as Axl Rose was leaving the venue. He pushed forward with his band's demo tape in hand, sure that fate would help him deliver it. He managed to hand the cassette directly to Axl Rose. The stars must have aligned because Axl Rose immediately threw it in the trash as he walked out of the venue.
Yeah, that checks out.
I mean, who wouldn't do that, to be honest?
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, right. That guitar player was Jerry Cantrell, and that demo was for Alice in Chains, a band who Columbia A&R rep Nick Loft called 4 more low-life rejects you've never seen in your life. Well, tonight we're going to dive into the second full-length studio album from those low-life rejects, an album called Dirt. So let's drop in a clip of the opening track of this album. This is a song called Them Bones.
Are you sure that's the title?
Them Bones. All right, now that we've got a taste of what we've been listening to this week, let's throw it around the studio today for our crew introductions by way of a particularly mean tweet-length review about this album. I'm going to go first to Rob.
Thanks so much, Adam. Excited to get into Alice in Chains tonight. I have 2 tweet-length reviews. Maybe together they can make one amazing one.
Ooh, excellent.
First up, I have Layne Staley struggled with fame. He struggled with drugs. He struggled with having a Monopoly guy rich-sounding full name. And he eventually hit rock bottom by recording a cover of Another Brick in the Wall for a movie starring Usher.
Ooh,
The fuck?
you went deeper than I did, apparently. Well done.
And my other one is just, look, everybody, it's Grunge Sabbath with the Muppet vocal stylings of Fozzy Osbourne.
Wow, there we go.
Very nice. All right, we're going to throw it over to Tom next.
Thank you, Adam. On a track from their album Dirt, Alice in Chains asks the question, what's my drug of choice? After listening to this record, for me, it's cyanide.
Awesome. All right. Hey, everybody, this is Adam, and my tweet is, Alice in Chains misunderstand the assignment and get all of their inspiration for this album from Poison with a lowercase p instead of Poison with an uppercase p.
Wow.
My alternate was Alice in Chains answers the age-old question, what if Motley Crue got really sad? All righty. So, gentlemen, I assume you're at least familiar with this album. I certainly knew I was. Grew up with this one. Not necessarily every track. So this was an interesting week. Got to kind of rediscover it. I knew all the hits, but certainly there were some tunes in there that I hadn't heard in quite some time. So how was your week?
Do you hate this album? Adam, that's my real question is like, do you hate this album? Because your choice for the focus list made me like the album less. I have to say, you left off all of my favorite songs on the album.
Yeah.
I left off all the hits because everybody's heard those. I wanted to get deep. I wanted to, get a little weird. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
And we all know the fans love it when we just skip over the hits.
Right.
I remembered liking Alice in Chains more than I liked this week. And then I had to kind of go check myself, and I realized that I just really love that album, Jar of Flies. I think that is a fantastic album, and I think that their Unplugged is also awesome, phenomenal.
Right.
When I was listening to this album this week, there was a couple of different modes of their songs. I feel like two of them worked really well. One is when they have like the really well-constructed down-tempo song. They all have those interesting harmony choices on there. They wrote a good melody. There's a well-defined chorus that sounds different from the verse. And then they got their like up-tempo kind of rocker songs, and I feel like up-tempo just papers over a lot of stuff. It just makes it seem just more interesting. But there was a surprising amount of down-tempo, underdeveloped songs that I couldn't find enough to sink my teeth into, especially when the bass, the guitar, and the vocals are all doing the same thing. And that was kind of a lot of the album. And
I had a note, yeah.
You add that to the really depressing lyrics. I mean, was this what the shit that we were listening to as kids? How the fuck did we make it into adulthood? This is so depressing. So it felt a little, it dragged a bit for me. And then also it's a 57-minute album. Like it's a long one.
I'm kind of coming from the opposite side. My confession here is that despite being the same age as you guys and living through the Alice in Chains era, this is the first time I have ever actively put Alice in Chains on.
Really?
To listen to.
Yeah.
So I was familiar with the big hits. I think in my head I would have been able to come up with Rooster and No Excuses and Man in the Box. Only one of those is on this album, right?
Yeah.
It's on this. Right. Yeah.
And I came away liking them quite a bit more. It rocked so much harder than I was expecting it to rock. You're right, Tom. I think they have two really good modes. I like the prog metal mode that they do when they go up tempo. They get into some weird time signatures. Mm-hmm. They definitely have a signature sound. Yes, a lot of it is borrowed from the 80s and some of it from the 70s and maybe back into the 60s if you factor in Jimi Hendrix. And I like some of their like willingness to slow down and rock, because that part reminded me favorably of Black Sabbath, that kind of patience where thrash went through its speed arms race and now we're just back to slowing it down to doom metal. So generally I was pretty darn positive on this because I came in with very low or even no expectations. I think your complaints are also valid, but yeah, I'm pretty high on the album and I'd be excited to listen to it again.
There were a couple songs that felt outside the box, I'll say, of this kind of sludge rock thing where I remember hitting on some of them, and as a kid, I think I skipped them. And then this time back around, those were my favorite songs because they were just so odd. I'm thinking of the one where it's like ba 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 ba, like just weird hits, weird breaks. The melodies are just odd. Sometimes he's just talking and singing at the same time. It's just a very odd album, but it definitely, to Tom's point, it was 10 times through the album. It's a slog. Especially when it's slow and sludgy, but I enjoyed the opportunity to dig into the backstory a bit more as well. So I think I have a nice, well-rounded view of growing up with them and then also learning about what was going on as we were growing up with them.
Yeah, and I don't want to come off like I hated the album or anything like that. I think that for me personally, I realized that what I liked was the next step in their evolution where they took this sort of sludge rock foundation that they had and took it like a step further into songs that weren't inherently sludge rocky and made it a little bit more I thought that was a very interesting blend. I also think that just in general, the band is tight. Like the band sounds really great, but I was also thinking a little bit more of the Mike Inez era of them where they got a new bass player. And he's a fucking monster. He's really good. And so I didn't find that their bass was Mike Starr. He's not bad or anything like that. I just don't think that he was doing anything that was like particularly special. And when there wasn't enough variety in the songs between differentiation between what the instruments were doing, that's where it really started to drag for me. I can get down with a slow song. I can get down with a patient song. But I feel like especially when a song is slow and patient, there's so much more room for the instruments to differentiate themselves from each other. And when they didn't do that, that's where the album fell flat. But in general, I did like it. And again, my experience of the Focus List was less enjoyable than just listening to the album through as a whole. There's a bit of necessity of some of the up-tempo songs to give you that variety away from the down-tempo stuff. Like the Focus List was very down-tempo, and so it made it feel a little bit more one note as opposed to the album has some more peaks and valleys, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Well, you were talking about the band. I do think in general the band is quite good. I'll single out the drummer, who I think is doing everything that you're talking about the bass player may be not doing, which is taking those relatively slow moments and filling them in with unexpected, wild fills. Like I was really enjoying listening to him, and he had never been on my radar before, and I still don't know his name, actually.
Sean Kinney. And yeah, he'd been playing since he was 9. We'll hear on the story.
Another thing that jumped out to me, we're hitting on it, but they're not just sludgy. They're not just grungy. There's an experimentalism at work.
Absolutely.
That I appreciated, and I guess I was not ready for. I got strains of like Mr. Bungle. I mean, there's some real genuine Carnival Funhouse weirdness in here. I mean, maybe starting with the concept for the band and the whole vocal harmony approach, I think they've done a pretty decent job of making that all more palatable by layering it with Jimi Hendrix style licks and melodic guitar. And one more compliment I'll give them, because I did read that Layne Staley, the singer, was a drummer originally. I think his sense of vocal cadence is generally quite good. I think he has a good sense of where to put his words within the bars that drive some of the stuff forward and help pay off some of the slower songs. So I don't mind sitting through a slow build, sludgy song. I understand why that could be a complaint for a lot of listeners, but I kind of like this kind of music anyway. But it does have to pay off. So that doesn't always happen. That is a valid complaint to me. Some of the songs, they pay off excellently, and I think the melody's doing a fair amount of work there.
No, I agree. That's where it's almost like I'm not upset, I'm just disappointed when they don't fully develop the melody. I'm like, I know you can, but like some of it did seem the tracks that seemed the least successful just seemed a little bit more phoned in. And the tracks where you can tell they really worked them hard, you know, the intervals that they use are very interesting. They have a very interesting sense of harmony, and the intervals that they use in their runs and stuff, it almost has that like sort of Middle Eastern feel to it at times.
I was going to say Gothic. Like I can feel some of them, like the monks, right? The whatever it is, the Gothic monks have those weird intervals that move around.
Yeah. I think it's using that fourth interval, stacking it on your guitar, stacking it on the vocals, as we've talked about often. I think that gives it a very chanty feel.
Yeah, and you know, this album was, I think, a different look at what grunge could be. And so I can understand why this album, at the beginning of the week, I was sort of like, why did he choose this one? You know, I know Jar of Flies is technically considered an EP, and so not a full-length album because it's only 30 minutes long, but I feel like that's a pretty fucking good length for an album. But Facelift would have been to me the obvious choice as like a debut, but I see that this is just like it's just a different version of what grunge was, you know, everything coming out of that Seattle scene. Not that it all sounded similar, but they don't sound like a Nirvana or a Pearl Jam or even a Soundgarden, who I think is probably closer to where their sound is. So it is a nice look at the variety that can exist within that incredibly influential grunge movement.
Can I say one more thing about their place in the grunge movement, which I'm sure we're going to hear more about in the story? I was surprised listening to Rooster and going, how did this become a hit? because I like the song. But it is feels like a particularly strange kind of hit song. It takes 2 minutes for the song to go anywhere. And even then, it's not that hooky. It just strikes me as a strange kind of hit. Again, I like the song. I'm not dissing the song, but I would not have listened to this album as an A&R guy and selected it as a single.
I think it's just that high vocal.
Yeah.
Sung better, obviously, but that's a very memorable line. It like almost serves as the hook of the song, kind of like on our recent bonus episode in our song battle where we talked about with "In the Meantime" by Space Hog. That kind of that high falsetto melody is the thing that you remember from the song, even though you think it's the chorus, even though it's not actually the chorus. It's kind of similar with Rooster. That's the thing that you think of as like the meat of the song, but so much of the song is not that.
I know it's more in the 90s as well, but just thinking about the grunge scene and maybe just that era where I feel like everyone was just a little more open-minded. So here in Philadelphia, we had a radio station called Y100, and you could turn that on and you could hear a Lisa Loeb song and then maybe Rooster and then a Jewel song, and and it was just kind of across the board. So Tom, kind of echoing what you're saying there, is that grunge movement, I feel like it was just a little more welcome to those different variations on a theme. But all right, we're going to jump into the backstory of Alice in Chains and the album Dirt, but first, we're going to take a quick break. And we're back. Okay, so we started talking about grunge a little bit, but I wanted to dive into it just a bit more. So grunge, this movement that was going on in the late 80s. Grunge, for people in the scene, obviously didn't know what it was. They weren't calling themselves grunge. Grunge was less a movement and more of a community. So to boil it down, it was this rejection of 80s excess. Think the giant hair, the spandex, the pyrotechnics, the party lyrics, the Guitar Hero theatrics. And it was a rejection of that. And it really focused in that Seattle scene starting in the mid 80s, because they kind of felt isolated. They weren't LA, they weren't Nashville, they weren't New York, they were their own little carve out. And the scene was definitely not necessarily anti-fun, but it was just more focused on authenticity. So just as an example, 1992, Mr. Biggs, I'm the One Who Wants to Be With You. Huge song. That same year, Pearl Jam releases a song about a kid who shoots up a school. So you've got a little more realism, a little more, again, I'll say authenticity. Not that grunge is a sound, but really just a rejection of that status quo, like most musical movements are. Now, like Tom said, not all these grunge bands have the same sound. You've got Nirvana, who you can tell kind of came from that punk influence. Pearl Jam pulled from what was likely more classic 70s rock. And tonight's band, Alice in Chains, was birthed from metal. Yes, the same metal that they were pushing against. And that's why Alice in Chains has a fun story, because they started in that world and transition. So this week I read Alice in Chains, The Untold Story by David DeSola. As usual, I'll be pulling extensively from that, as well as other articles, interviews, documentaries I found online. And our ultimately sad story, sorry to ruin it for anyone not familiar with this super happy band, but this sad story actually begins kind of upbeat. A lot of Layne Staley's story can be viewed retrospectively, and people will assume that he was a tortured soul from childhood, but not really. From what I could find, his childhood was not super terrible, like so many of the stories we've heard about on this podcast. So obviously, we're going to focus our story on the lead singer of the band, a gentleman named Layne Rutherford Staley.
And he wasn't a baron of, like, his grandparents didn't make their money in molasses or something like that. No.
Not unless it was all a front and this secret money in the background. But he was born on August 22nd, 1967 in Bellevue, Washington. His parents were Phil and Nancy. Nancy was a stay-at-home mom. His father was a car salesman. Layne told Rolling Stone his earliest memory was of a musical carousel above his crib. And his family said he was a very focused child, really into whatever artistic thing he was doing that they put in front of him, whether it was Legos or Tinker Toys. But his parents do get divorced in 1974. And his mom doesn't waste any time and gets married 2 months after the divorce is finalized. Layne is 8 years old at this point. Now, he says it's not that big of a deal. He said nothing really changed except he would sometimes wonder why his dad wasn't around. So either his dad was kind of an absentee guy, or that's what people tell themselves when they want to deny feelings of abandonment that they form at 8 years old. This is me and my armchair psychology analyzing Layne later on in life.
How dare you, Adam? I still haven't gotten to that breakthrough in my own life.
Yeah.
So according to friends and family, he's a gentle, kind, smart kid. He's not really book smart, but he's very intelligent. He's not really into schoolwork or sports. But his first big musical moment in his life is seeing Elton John in concert in 1975 at that Seattle Center Coliseum that his stepfather Jim had taken him to. And this is kind of plants a seed in his brain. Now, this era of music has Layne and his stepbrother Ken developing an affinity for the late 70s and early 80s hair metal bands like Twisted Sister, Scorpions, and though he's not hair metal, Ozzy.
I hear the Ozzy. I don't know if I hear the Scorpions all that much in this, but I'm not that familiar with the Scorpions catalog, thankfully.
So despite a diet heavy and loud guitars, Layne still loves Billy Joel, specifically Glass Houses and Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. You can definitely hear those influences.
Yeah, of course.
You joke about that, but I definitely can hear a kid who grew up trying to sing the harmony part on every song that he was listening to. And Rumors would be a great album for that. That's the easiest way to get good at harmony.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Yep.
Just listen to somebody else's harmony and try to sing that part. And you can tell he did that a lot because he is a fantastic harmonizer. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and you also have to write lines that can be harmonized easily, which is part of it, right? I was going to say, too, that you mentioned how grunge came about. It's also just this generational cycle where kids who were coming of age and starting bands in the late 80s, early 90s, they pulled from the 70s. Like 70s had kind of gone out of fashion through the 80s, and then it sort of has to come back. So, of course, they're pulling from the stuff of their childhood.
Yeah, and you think about the backpack that I had in high school where I had written a bunch of different band names and stuff on it, and it was all grunge bands and 70s bands. It was, there's Led Zeppelin
right.
and it was...
You mean Glass Tiger and their 1986 release? No,
Hold on, Tom. As you said in one of our earlier podcasts, I believe Stone Roses was also on there.
Stone Roses was also on there just because I like the name. It's a different time.
So Layne recalled later in life that around 5th grade, he realized he wanted to make music for a living. So he's not sure what he's going to play, but he definitely wants to be a musician. He actually winds up playing the trumpet and cornet for a period of time. But at 12 years old, he starts playing the drums and keeps it up for about 2 years. So he gets into a cover band at around 14 years old as the drummer. Now, at some point, because he's stuck in the back, Layne says he wants to try singing a song. Their frontman tells him to shut up and that drummers don't sing. So,
good man.
Which is the right thing to say.
Yeah.
So they get into a fight, and Layne immediately leaves with his drums, gets to a music store, trades all his drum gear for a microphone, a cable, simple delay pedal, and he starts practicing.
Think about that band for a second. The singer told the drummer no, and the drummer left. I bet the rest of the band is like, can we get rid of the singer? Because we can't find them. The drummers are hard. It's hard to find a drummer.
We can do
Fuck
that?
you. Anybody can be a singer. I don't give a shit about you.
There's no chance that 14-year-old singer was any good, by the way.
No, definitely not.
So now around this same time, Layne, 14 or 15 years old, starts drinking a little bit, smoking some weed, occasionally taking Dexatrim, which was a diet drug, basically a stimulant. So the cheap...
Yeah, wasn't that the I'm So Excited from Saved by the Bell episode? Wasn't she on those like diet pills or something? Yeah.
Oh, she was taking diet pills. Yes. That episode is more responsible for kids doing drugs in the 90s than this album. So he's taking diet pills, and thankfully, that is the only time he ever took any other substances. And today, we're happy to present Smucker's Milestone Birthdays. And Layne is 58 years young today. And sorry, that was a Willard Scott reference there. So you're welcome.
Wow.
Always topical.
Keeping it current. Yeah.
With his drums sold and microphone in hand, Layne auditions for a friend of his stepbrother. That friend is in a band called Sleaze. Spelled Sleeze.
Slez?
Kind of awesome. The simplicity is kind of great on that.
Yeah, right. Now, Layne auditions with the song Looks That Kill by Motley Crue. Rob, are you familiar with this song?
Don't even ask that question, Adam, please.
If you haven't heard it, you should absolutely go listen and watch the music video. It is remarkable. For some reason, the band is rounding up cave women and putting them in like a pen in a post-apocalyptic war.
For some reason. What reason could they possibly be rounding up women and putting them in a pen?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
It's a different era. Now, everyone in Sleaze freaks out when they hear Layne sing because he nails those 80s high notes. He nails the song. He nails the audition. So they are pumped. And in 1985, Sleaze has been practicing a ton, and they are ready for the big leagues. So they audition for the Shorewood High School talent show. They unfortunately do not make the cut.
You know what he was missing, Adam?
What's that?
Goat vibrato.
They do.
High notes are great, but that's what you need.
Right. So that was another high school, but they do convince their own high school to let them do a 45-minute set at lunchtime at the Student Activity Center one day. And Sleaze is hair metal to the max. We're talking clones of Motley Crue and Poison. They come on stage with big hair, makeup, tight clothes, and proceed to rock a midday set of covers from bands that I'm not metal enough to know about, like Armored Saint, Venom, and Wrathchild.
Is this at their school?
This is at their school. They convinced the administration to let them play.
So that means that they were like at school in like history class with their like tight leather pants and their teased up hair all day long. They just had to come.
I think they went to the bathroom to primp and prep, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
That would be a little distracting. So Sleaze plays, God, I can't that name. Sleaze plays some more Battle of the Bands and some other small gigs. I mean, these guys are 16 years old. There's no vans. There's no managers. But they get some better gigs, like at Rock Theater, a heavy metal club in Seattle. And in late 1985, though, Layne gets his big TV debut. Well, sort of. This is the era of Tipper Gore's Parents Music Resource Center, which, if you're too young to remember, this was where Tipper Gore wanted to raise awareness of violent, sexual, and most threateningly, occult content in popular music. The satanic panic of the 80s. Anyway, Layne is in the audience of a Seattle community access television talk show about the controversy, where he said, "Our lyrics are all positive. We don't use bad language or sing about drugs and sex, but I just want the freedom to write about what I want." That quote will not come back at any point to contradict him at all. Now, Layne's parents, surprisingly supportive of his musical aspirations. And after a quote like that on TV, who could blame them? Now, despite the fact that his mother Nancy didn't understand or know what he was playing, she and her husband buy Layne a VW Dasher station wagon when he's 18 years old. Super supportive. They knew he was going to need space in the car for all that makeup and hairspray that the band was going to need. Now, they knew he was going to need to haul gear around, so they bought him a car. I think it was used, but still pretty stand up.
That's nice, but it's also like, okay, now get the fuck out of the house. You got the car now. Like, there you go.
You read ahead in the story. So Sleaze is churning along, and eventually Layne meets a guy named Sean Kinney. Kinney is a drummer who has been gigging since he was 9 years old, playing with his grandfather's country band for years. He meets Layne in 1985, tells Layne that he's a cool dude, but that Layne's band sucks, and that despite sucking, they need him to be their drummer. And that wouldn't happen till a few years later, but the two had at least.
Your band sucks. Let me join.
It really is. You guys suck, and I suck with you as your drummer.
It's kind of common, though. I feel like that's come up in a lot of stories.
I feel like it more comes up of like a specific guy in your band who just so happens to play the same instrument that I do sucks, and you need to replace them with me.
Right.
Not the entire outfit is fucking garbage, but I will, gladly come along.
So Sleaze continues to gain local recognition and fans. However, Layne's parents stop being so supportive the same year they give him that car. See, Layne is 18 years old. His mother's a Christian Scientist and is not thrilled with him drinking, smoking weed, having sex with groupies. They give him what I assume is the not under my roof ultimatum, and he ultimately moves out.
Drinking, smoking weed, having sex with groupies, like... why did you even start playing music if you're not going to do those things, right? Like that's the whole point,
Mom.
Right?
Now, as he's getting kicked out of the house, the band decides that they also need a change of view, and they graduate from rehearsing in a basement and decide to start renting rehearsal space at a place called the Music Bank. Now, the Music Bank has a really interesting story as well that coincides with this entire Seattle scene. It was real stomping grounds for a ton of big bands coming out of the area. So at that time, there wasn't enough rehearsal space in the area. A guy named Scott Hunt put an ad in a music publication called The Rocket, advertising 24-hour rehearsal space, just as market research. Within a few days, his answering machine was full with bands interested in renting rooms. So he works some financial magic with some silent partners and ultimately converts a nearly abandoned 40,000 square foot warehouse into 52 separate rehearsal studios. Everybody on the Seattle scene is pumped, and as of day one, they were completely booked up.
That is awesome, and like, I wonder how much of an impact that had on the grunge scene, like becoming a thing. Rehearsal space is so fucking hard to find in a major city. Rob and I had a space in San Francisco. We're successful professionals, and it was financially taxing to pay for that rehearsal space, and there wasn't a lot of them available. It's just it's tough.
And it got everybody, all of these musicians in the same physical space. 5 doors down, there might be another band that did something cool that you heard and you want to steal it, or you want to go introduce yourself. Like, who knows? It's a giant mixing pot. And I think the Music Bank really did contribute to the scene.
Yeah, that's huge. It's so interesting to think about like what even leads to a scene being created, because it's such a fragile and rare sort of thing. But this is certainly a component of it.
So sometime in late 1985, Layne walks in the door of the Music Bank and asks for rehearsal space. Hunt, who's running the joint, says they're fully booked. Now, Layne mentions that he was wandering around the building and saw an unused room way in the back. He was describing the janitorial and supply closet. So now Hunt has 53 separate rehearsal spaces as he agrees to rent the supply room to Layne. And he was saying it was so small, it barely fit the 4 members of Sleaze along with their gear, and especially the drums. Sometimes you forget about how much room drums take up, half the room. So they were all standing on each other. They said in the summer, it was nearly unbearable.
And maybe we should give a picture for people who haven't been to these spaces, because it's literally just a warehouse with constructed walls with some carpeting on the side, right? And of course, they're trying to make them as small as humanly possible. And then there's just a padlock on the door, on your specific door, so you can leave all your stuff there, right? But they tend to be very no frills and in the worst part of town.
In like the abandoned warehouse district of town.
Right, exactly.
When you're in there, it most certainly does not have a high-end HVAC system, so you're not getting like a lot of cool air pumped in or anything like that.
God.
The smell is ridiculous.
Maybe there's enough electricity for a fan, right? So with a dedicated space, the band begins practicing a ton. They're tightening up their abilities, writing some songs, and the next step is to cut a demo. So they work with a guy named Tim Branham, who is a musician and songwriter and engineer. He works with the band for about 3 months on the material while they're rehearsing at the Music Bank. And with their idol's motley crew in mind and hearkening back to Layne's TV comments about his songs not being about drugs and sex, the guys write some real female empowerment songs. So, for example, Lip Lock Rock is pretty terrible. But my personal favorite is a song called Fat Girls.
Wow.
You can only find this on YouTube. It's not on Spotify. And this song is nearly indistinguishable from Steel Panther, who, if you're not familiar with, are a parody 80s glam rock band. So here's a line for you from Fat Girls. Fat girls, ooh, can be so much fun. Their mouths are motors, so let their motors run. The chorus is mumbled, but it's something about eating too much cake.
What the fuck?
And how they're never going to stop.
And this, just to be clear, this is the band Sleaze that is putting this out? Okay, yes. It's so out of character. Yeah.
This is the band Sleaze. Yeah, inexplicable. If you're bored, Fat Girls, great song.
And they know what they're about.
Yeah, they do. Oh, and the second verse says something about when you're done and satisfied, you just throw them out.
Oh, Jesus.
It's so awesome. All right, so they record this demo at London Bridge Studios, which is about 10 miles outside of Seattle. Now, they finished that demo, and I don't think I can stress this enough. Layne Staley is fronting a full glam metal band. Crazy to think about, and the reason I love this podcast. But despite all this awesome metal music, the guys still have day jobs. Layne and Nick Pollock, a guitarist in Sleaze, are working at an industrial factory that made radiation containment equipment. He doesn't really take his job too seriously. He and Nick are known to pound a 12-pack over lunch, smoke weed on their breaks, and Layne frequently drops acid on the job. So if you're listening to this podcast right now in a nuclear submarine or nuclear power plant that was manufactured in the late 80s, check your thyroid.
But that's like the kind of job that, especially in the 80s, like people were supporting families on that and buying houses and stuff, going on vacations, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And they're looking over and there's a 20-year-old fucking floating on acid over there.
Slagging off. Now, the band is getting pretty well known in and around the Seattle scene. They're kind of scenesters. People want to hang out with them. They're usually getting drunk and high on other people's dime. Now, Sean Kinney, who would join the band shortly, said, quote, all of a sudden, we had hundreds of girls at our shows. We happened to be in a popular band, and we were able to inspire some very lovely ladies to do whatever the hell we wanted them to do.
I mean, again, you know what you're getting with this name.
Right. The Sleaze. So what do you expect, right?
Yeah, how did the females in the crowd react to their song Fat Girls? I'm curious.
Right.
They were just like, yeah, or like maybe a couple of them were like, what the fuck did he just say?
And then they move on to something else. Now, a quick note on the band name. They're called Sleaze at this point. But sometime in the winter of 1986, Layne and crew are hanging out with the frontman for the band Slaughterhouse-5. So Layne is playing around. He's coming up with backstage passes for their non-existent world tour, just for fun. He called it Sleaze, Welcome to Wonderland. Joking around, it morphs into discussions of Alice in Wonderland, and then Alice in Bondage, and then Alice in Chains. However, not to be too edgy, and to avoid any S&M concerns, they decided to make it Alice in Chains, like Cap Crunch.
It's the dumbest compromise I've ever heard.
Well, no one will think about that now. Yes, so like a bad soda from the 80s, it's Alice N, the letter, Chains.
This is an all-time bad band name, I gotta say. I know we've gotten used to it over the decades, but it's pretty terrible.
I mean, but they were coming up with the same scene as Pearl Jam, which again is one we've gotten used to, but is a fucking terrible band name.
Oh, that's a great point. I've never really said it out loud. Pearl Jam. All right, so it's January of 87. Sleaze demos are done and mixed in Triad Studios. It costs about $1,600. They make about 100 cassettes and give most of them to family and friends and some to local radio stations. What better gift for your grandmother than a stereo mix of Fat Girls? They begin to build a decent LA following as a party band. It sounds very shticky, by the way. They would walk on stage to entrance music, throwing roses out to the girls in the audience.
What kind of assholes have entrance music for their band?
I'm guessing you guys do when you walk on stage.
We did, yes, absolutely did, yes. Well, no, we used to in the Chop. We used to have entrance music.
Very important to the whole aesthetic, guys. You got to get people ready for the show. Come on.
Hell yeah, dude. It's like a WWF show.
I think for our first show, while we were like getting into our costumes, yes, we were in outfits and costumes at the time, we were playing over the, it was a house party. We were just playing a bit like a party in a backyard. We were playing over the PA system old songs, like classic songs, where we just randomly would change one of the words to chop, but like we wouldn't have done it very well. So the song would just be going and be like, yeah, it makes me want to, and they would just like cut to somebody going chop.
That was one of them. You forgot the part where we had like a 4-song playlist where we ramped up the use of the word chop over the course of the playlist, and it culminated in Make Me Want to Holler with that very flat chop delivery.
Does that exist anywhere? Can we get a copy up on Patreon for that? I don't know. I have to look into the archives, man. That's what.
Thankfully, this is before easy recording at shows. Like, nobody had their cell phones out able to record.
All right.
So it does not. Yeah.
I believe our actual entrance music for that show was then the Indiana Jones theme.
Yes. Yeah.
Ooh, that's pretty good. Yeah. Nice. All right, so Sleaze, or I'm sorry, Alice in Chains now, they're partying a lot. They get wasted a lot. It was something that was happening more and more. Lots of booze, some weed, plenty of cocaine, lots of acid and mushrooms. It was the 80s, so only fleeting mentions of heroin in the scene in the mid-80s. It's mostly cocaine and booze. And Layne, unfortunately, shows an immunity early on to intoxication. His bandmates from Sleaze said that he could ingest so much stuff it just didn't mess him up. One time he drank half a bottle of tequila and it didn't slow him down at all, which natural proclivities, it may actually have led to his downfall in the end.
Well, I also think that there is a personality type that's just good at playing it cool.
Right.
I've always sort of tried to do that myself. Be like, people are like, oh man, I barely ever see you drunk. I'm like, I've been completely shit-faced around you, but my entire time, my brain is just going, just play cool, man. Just be cool. Just be cool. Don't do anything. Just be cool.
Every time you've talked to me, I've been wasted. Really? Yes. In fact, right now, I'm drunk. Now, this takes a turn, and Layne starts freebasing cocaine, and that kind of takes it to another level. It's bad enough that his band at the time has an intervention with him in 1987.
When you're in a band called Sleaze and they feel the need to have an intervention with you, you know it's bad.
He was open to the intervention and said that he would stop using. And he's only 19 at this point. So he stops for a bit. In that same year, Alice in Chains gets on a bill with two other bands at the Tacoma Little Theater. And in the audience that night is a guy named Jerry Cantrell. Now, Jerry Cantrell is a few years older than Layne, and like Layne, he knew from a young age he wanted to be a musician. He was given a Dr. Seuss book as a kid, something like My Book About Me, and in the space where it said what he wants to do when he grows up, he wrote rock star. He was like 7 years old or something. So a 14-year-old Jerry gets really into guitar, listening to Elton John. Apparently, he played the hell out of that Caribou and Captain Fantastic, those two albums.
And there we go.
Very melodic, you know? The dude can shred, but he's also got taste, is something that I noticed on this album. So that kind of makes sense. All right, so again, there's books and I'm sure other podcasts on Jerry Cantrell. He's awesome, but he goes to school. He's in the high school chorus. So he graduates high school, moves back to Dallas, joins a band that immediately implodes, and then he moves back to Tacoma, Washington, and joins a hair metal-ish band called Diamond Lie. And they were described in some music publication as any of the glam bands that were big at the time. Less Motley Crue, more pop, chick rock. So just like Sleaze, I guess they're Alice in Chains at this time, Diamond Lie are trying to be a glam show, an event. They've got choreographed dance moves. Jerry and the other guitarists work out this thing where they would stand 10 feet apart on stage and flick guitar picks at each other, catch them in midair and keep playing, which honestly sounds pretty badass.
It does, but also the guitar pick is small enough that you could just fake that you caught it. Like, no one's actually going to know if you catch it. Like, guitar picks are tiny.
That's a very good point. You're right. Just grab some air and then keep playing.
I remember the dude from Cheap Trick. His gimmick was that he was playing with like a bunch of picks, and he would like be flicking them out while he was playing on his thumb. People in the crowd were catching them.
That's pretty cool. It's a cool gimmick. So Jerry is playing. He's a true professional, regimented guitar player, very business savvy guy. So he's playing with Diamond Lie, but he loses both his grandmother and mother to cancer within 6 months of each other. So he's in a bad spot. Diamond Lie also breaks up. And at the same time, Jerry sees Alice in Chains around the scene and meets Layne at a party. Layne's completely wasted, and after hanging out with Jerry Cantrell, he learns that Jerry's pretty hard up. He lost his family, his band, even his place to live. So Layne invites Jerry to come live with him. Live at their rehearsal space at the Music Bank. That's the other thing about rehearsal spaces. They're basically like garages. You live there as well if you're hard up.
So wait, were they both living there?
Just Jerry. So the other band members in this initial iteration of Alice in Chains were not thrilled that there was some dude just living in their practice area. That, mixed with Layne's increasing drug use, causes the band to essentially dissolve. But while they're falling apart, Jerry Cantrell is forming another band with drummer Sean Kinney and bassist Mike Starr. Obviously, they ask Layne to hop in and sing, and behold, we now have Alice and, now hang on, wait, they go through one more. They're Diamond Lie at this point. Yeah, all the names are confusing. I really should have like a Gantt chart for this. But Layne is playing the field a little bit, singing with some other bands. But the rest of Diamond Lie, namely Jerry, Mike, and Sean, want Layne to commit to their band full time. So, a little band psychology lesson for you. How do you get your singer to commit? Well, you tell him you're auditioning other singers because you're moving on without him. Then deliberately get the worst singers you can find, bring them to your rehearsal space for tryouts while your singer's there. It might even help if one of them's a male stripper.
Is this the same rehearsal space that Jerry Cantrell is living in because Layne Staley gave him a...
Yes.
Okay. So he moves in, then like steals his band and rehearsal space and is like, I'm going to kick you out if you don't quit the, I believe, funk band that you were singing in.
Yes.
Which that's the craziest part of the story to me. Layne Staley in a funk band. Like, what the fuck was that like? Can you imagine, like, they're doing a version of
Play That Funky Music, White Boy.
play that funky music with like the crazy fourth harmony in there.
Sean Kinney, the drummer, remembers Layne walking around and just cringing. After 3 horrendous tryouts, Layne realizes what they're doing and he agrees to go full time and quit those other bands.
This is also a little bit confusing to me. He's at the tryouts for his replacement? Why?
Yes. They timed it so that he was there. I have no idea.
All right. It seems elaborate.
Now, despite their party band roots, they deliberately start working on some heavier material, even though at this point, hair metal is far from dead in society. And they record a demo as Diamond Lie in a session that would come to be called the Treehouse Sessions. And just for some context, here's one of those songs. This is called Social Parasite. They're moving away from the Poison and the Twisted Sister, a little more metal, a little less hair.
You putting this as a reference track on the focus list, it made me think of Guns N' Roses much more clearly. And for whatever reason, I had not assigned that particular touchtone to them before that moment. So, and Guns N' Roses does feel like the bridge between party music and grunge music to a certain extent, right?
Yeah. They're bringing the sleaze with you, the entire way.
Yeah. But there's like a melodic 70s element to it as well. And a bombastic element.
Sure.
All right, now every band that makes it needs a little luck, so dig this series of events, which I admit is going to start sounding like my neighbor's aunt's cousin's mechanic's pool boy knew a guy, but bear with me. So there was a guy named Randy Hauser. He was in the Northwest music scene as a manager and promoter. In 1986, after serving 8 years for being a cocaine dealer, he moved to Seattle and enrolled in a local beauty school. Yes, you heard that right. So he starts up a friendship with a woman at that beauty school named Melinda. They both finished the program and they would keep in touch occasionally. At some point in 1988, Hauser gets involved with promotions and was managing about 30 local acts. Because of this, he's always at shows, and everybody who sees him gives him a tape of their band, which he would throw in a box at home. Well, one day, he's catching up with Melinda, his old beauty school buddy, and had stopped by her beauty shop. Melinda handed Hauser a tape of her boyfriend's band. Her boyfriend was Sean Kinney, the drummer for Diamond Lie / Alice in Chains. Hauser takes the tape home, throws it in the box, and completely forgets about it. About a month later, a guy named Nick Loft, an A&R guy from Atlantic Records, was staying at Randy Hauser's house and was just going through the tapes in the box. He'd put them on, play 4 seconds, and make like a gong show sound because the band sucked. Now, Hauser noticed at one point that Nick Loft had made it through an entire song and was starting the second track on one of these tapes. He hollers across the house, "Who are these guys?" Of course, he takes the tape out. It's not labeled. It has no case. Nick Loft takes the tape back to his office, puts the song on the intercom, and asks if anybody knows who this band is. Eventually, Hauser puts it together, that it's the cassette that Melinda gave him, and that Nick Loft winds up at the music bank seeing, quote, 4 more low-life rejects you've never seen in your life. This is their foot in the door.
I like all these stories about people whose job it is to listen to tapes. They just refuse to listen to them.
That's a good point. Your point in life is to find stuff. So why don't you?
Yeah, because from where I'm sitting, that does sound like a cool job. And yet, I'm based on all these stories we've heard, as soon as I got that power, I would immediately be like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Or it would be that you just get beaten down by having to listen to so many shitty, unsolicited demos that you're just like, I can't take it anymore. And you just become dead inside and throw them away.
Yeah.
Yeah, who wants to force themselves to listen to shitty music week over week over week?
I imagine they get paid more than we do for this stuff.
Free tickets to better concerts.
The amount of like poor planning that went into having no information on their cassette, somebody listens to it and likes it enough to like hunt down. That's the thing that is crazy, because I feel like in almost every other scenario, I'd be like, this is pretty cool. Who is this? No name. Okay, forget about it. I will never think about this again and move on with my life, you know?
Yeah, I hit exactly one barrier and I'm giving up.
Yes, exactly.
So Hauser offers to manage the guys once he finds them and admits that he kind of has no idea what he's doing, that their band is way bigger than anything he's done so far. But his goal would be to promote them and eventually hand them off to a big LA agency whenever they're ready. So the band officially changes their name to Alice in Chains, and they play their first gig as that band in July of 1988.
Yeah, because Alice N apostrophe Chains means Alice End Chains, right?
Yes.
Which is kind of like Guns N' Roses, too. I mean, it was very of its time, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So shortly after that, the music bank is raided by federal and local authorities because it turns out the owners had purchased additional space connected to the warehouse and magically started consuming 4 times the amount of electricity. Can you guys guess what was going on there?
Yeah, it was a grow operation.
There it is, yes. Massive marijuana operation going on. Full scale, they would have been able to grow about $30 million a year in crops. They hadn't scaled up fully, but the feds managed to grab about 500 pounds of weed in that raid. So the music bank is shut down.
There was a place that Rob and I had a space at back in the day. It was over in Oakland that I am positive had several grow rooms in there because you didn't have to pay for electricity. It was like part of the deal. You would just have, you get the room and the electricity's included. I'm certain there were several grow operations there.
Well, another hint might be that they dedicated one of the rooms to selling Gatorade and weed illegally.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
That's a little tip off there. All right. Yeah. With the music bank shut down, the band decides to record yet another demo at London Bridge Studios. Much more professional setup than anything at the music bank. And they had upgraded to a 24-track digital tape machine. Now, for this more professional demo, the band re-records some of the songs from the Treehouse sessions along with some new material. So, it's the summer of 1989. Layne is 21 years old, and the band is cooking. They're unsigned, but they're playing lots of shows. They opened for Tesla and Great White that year, and the buzz around them is huge. Here's some of what the music publications were saying. Quote, "To all the A&R types, Alice in Chains, remember that band, they're gonna be huge." Tower Records publication The Pulse called their demo, quote, one of the most original demos in memory. This little rat pack should have labels eating out of their hand in no time.
Sounds like there were signs everywhere, signs that Alice in Chains is going to go right to the top.
Straight to the top, baby. In fact, one of their biggest and most important fans is a guy named Don Lenner, who had just been hired as the president of Columbia Records.
Wow. Okay.
Damn.
It's a good fan to have.
Yeah, he said, I flipped out the first time I heard their demo tape. So after 6 months of negotiations, Alice in Chains signs a contract with CBS Records. CBS is the parent of Columbia Records, and they managed to keep 100% of their publishing rights in the contract. Good on them. All right, so now with a record deal signed, it's time to make a proper record, gents. And a guy named Nick Terzo, an A&R guy with Columbia, sends their demo out to a lot of different producers, but nobody's really biting. They said that the feeling was kind of just confusion amongst some of these producers because they didn't have a real point of reference. But there is one guy named David Jordan who called them Black Sabbath with new kid mentality. So he agrees to produce them and sends them off to Seattle to write a bunch more material and record demos. 12 of those songs become the basis for their debut, Facelift. Now, the production budget on Facelift in 1989, Columbia gives them between $150,000 and $250,000 in 1989 money.
Damn.
Not too shabby.
I know that we're going to probably touch on it more in the story, but how much of that did Layne Staley spend on drugs?
So great news for the band. So it's good news for them. Grunge is getting its comeuppance, its due, but the scene in general was about to take a big hit. So right in the middle of recording Facelift, the frontman of Mother Love Bone, another Seattle-based rock band and roommate of Chris Cornell, a guy named Andrew Wood, died of a heroin overdose. Now, people around him knew what was going on, but they had kept it quiet. Now, he was not the first person in the music scene to die of heroin, but he was certainly the first major player in that Seattle grunge scene to die from heroin, and spoiler alert, not the last. So this whole scene gets hit pretty hard. Chris Cornell has a quote saying, "You know, the world was sort of our oysters. We had support, we supported each other, and he was a beam of light. And to see him hooked up to machines, it was the death of innocence of the scene."
Implying that he was in a coma before he died? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like overdose. I think he was in the hospital just hooked up to a bunch of crap.
Yeah,
People were able to come in and see him before he died.
Didn't that directly lead to the formation of Temple of the Dog for their album?
Yes, it did. That's right.
Sort of
That's
a tribute
right.
album to there. Are we going to talk about any of the tracks on Facelift? Because I was really cracking myself up this week, remembering back when we would cover Man in the Box back in the day. Do you remember, Adam?
Is it that we couldn't sing the chorus, so we gave it to the drummer to just...
None of us could hit the note. Well, we just traded off who was going to try it. And it was basically like, who wants to try to hit the note today? And every single time, it was so bad.
And we would just scream, just bellow, and never hit the note.
The thing that cracked me is we insisted on playing it all the time. Like, we did it all the time.
Because it rocked so hard. It rocked so hard.
Never once did we hit the note, not even close. It was just like, and if we were doing it as like an Andy Kaufman-esque comedy thing, that would have been different. But I think we were objectively trying to do it well, and we were just like, well, I didn't hit the note last time. Phil, why don't you try it? All right, Mike, why don't you try it? It's like, we've already all tried it. None of us can hit the fucking note.
It is funny you mention that because, of course, that's where I first heard Alice in Chains was through you guys, Gellner, Adam, Tom, and Phil's band,
Nice.
playing Man in the Box at every single set, and I was watching almost all of your sets. And I had a moment of, I was thinking about that this week, and then I was thinking, that is a high note. Like, can Adam hit that note? That's what I was thinking in my head. I don't remember you guys fucking it up at all. I must have seen you play it 20 times.
I wonder if one of us tried falsetto. I'm the man in the box. Feed my eyes. Yeah, doesn't really hit. So Alice in Chains finish Facelift. The band hits the road almost immediately after the release. Their first spot is on a month-long leg opening for Extreme, playing in 500 to 1,500 seat clubs. This is Extreme touring for their second album, Extreme 2, Pornograffiti, which has Wholehearted on it and More Than Words. Two great songs.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say, those were like, I was like, this is the same Extreme that had More Than Words. Okay. They're touring with that band.
I think that was one of my guilty pleasures.
I mean, I don't really know the Extreme catalog, but isn't More Than Words a little bit of a departure from most of their stuff?
They are shredded. What is it? Nuno Betancourt. He's like a real shredder. They're very proggy, shreddy, metally. So, but yes.
With a name like Extreme, you're not churning out a whole album's worth of More Than Words.
Jack Johnson songs, yeah. So we talked a little bit about the expiring of the old school of rock and moving into this grunge community. And the old heads like Extreme were in a world where the headliner, even if you weren't that big, you would treat the openers like shit. Grunge kind of changed that. It's more of that punk idea that we're all in this together. So Extreme treated Alice in Chains like garbage. And so Alice in Chains vowed never to treat another band like that just because they're the opener. So now the next leg of their tour has them opening for Iggy Pop, playing in even larger theaters, holding between 1,000 and 3,000 people. Alice in Chains close out 1990 by finishing and releasing an album, doing 2 national tours, making 2 music videos, but there's no super breakout success moment yet. However, that's about to change. In 1991, they're approached by Cameron Crowe, who's working on the script for Singles. He approaches the band after learning they were close to Andrew Wood, who had died in March of 1990. Cameron wanted a song from them, so the band convinced him to pay them for 10 songs, 9 of which were just throwaway garbage, and one they actually tried for, which was Wood, spelled W-O-U-L-D, a take on Andrew Wood's last name.
Did not know that, yeah.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that till this week either. It's pretty cool.
Why did they not try on the other 9 songs?
I think they just wanted money. I think they saw a paycheck and they're like, hey, a Hollywood movie. Yeah, let's go.
It's fair enough, but you'd think you'd want a couple of songs on that soundtrack if you could make it work, you know? Just odd choice.
So this certainly helps them get more attention, as that was a pretty big movie and soundtrack. So Alice in Chains continues to get bigger spots. They get on a tour opening for Megadeth, Slayer, and Anthrax. And I think we've heard somewhere else that those Slayer fans were brutal. We had some other band that was opening for Slayer and were getting batteries thrown at them and stuff. Same thing happened to Alice in Chains. However, they managed to hold their own. And speaking of Megadeth, if you remember how much of a peach Dave Mustaine from Megadeth is, he got word somehow that Alice in Chains used to be a Poison-style hair metal band. He somehow gets the graphic or like logo from one of their t-shirts back in the hair metal days, and he has hundreds of posters made and hangs them up all over the Mercer Arena in Seattle for the opening band to embarrass them.
Dave Mustaine's an asshole. That's fucking awesome.
That is pretty great.
I agree. I would have laughed really hard.
I like how much effort needed to go into it. That's the part I like.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like you hired a graphics company to you had an art department to go make some shit. Right. That's great.
So the next big step for them, their video for Man in the Box starts to get some real airplay. Their debut Facelift goes from spot 166 to number 42 in just 7 weeks. So 1991 is looking up. They even get an opening slot for Van Halen's North American tour that year.
I think it's pronounced Van Hagar.
Ah, thank you. You're right. At that point, it probably was. However, it's on this tour that they bring a 5th member into the band, and that was Heroin. So we haven't talked a ton about drugs, but yeah, these dudes partied a lot. Never debilitating. They didn't miss shows because of anything, because they were drunk or coked out or from hallucinogens. The heroin had always been kind of simmering below the surface, but it was really Andrew Wood's death that brought it to light. And that is a very depressing lead into our favorite segment, By the Numbers!
Yeah!
Our first number is 410. So just for some context, just in Seattle alone, there were 32 heroin overdoses in 1986, 59 overdoses in 1992, And in the first 6 months of 1993, there were 410 overdoses at just Harborview Medical Center.
Damn.
Jesus.
The shipping crate just pulled up with the heroin?
I think so.
Must be something like that, right?
Yeah, we're talking about how a practice rehearsal space can like really make a scene flourish. It might have just been like one guy got a good connect and just started bringing a bunch of heroin into town,
All right, our next number is 6'1". Layne Staley is 6'1" tall. That's pretty tall. Part of the reason he got that original gig with Sleaze. He was tall, had peroxide bleached hair, so he got the look, he got the gig.
Yeah, I'm also sure why he was like, I'm not sitting behind these drums anymore. Look at me. I got to get out front. Come on.
Right. Yeah. Tall drummers are always a little awkward. Our next number, 300, as in $300. There's so much great hair metal material in this story. So Sleaze licensed one of their songs for the movie Father Rock, which was a low-budget 1985 Seattle public access television movie. They got paid $300. And of course, their scene is available on YouTube. It's them in a church. It's epic. Our next number is the number 16. That is the number of vocal tracks layered by Layne on the song Angry Chair on this album, according to engineer accounts. It's a 4-part harmony, and he's doing 4 vocals on each. So, whole lot of tape.
That song does I like that song quite a lot. That's a great song.
Yeah, it's pretty badass. Our next number is 13, as in 13 million. That is the approximate worldwide sales of Dirt since it was published. Not too shabby.
It's a bigger hit than I would have predicted for how kind of strange and sludgy it all is. Again, it's kind of up my alley, but it's still surprising to me that it did this well.
Next up is the number 5, as in $5. No, I'm not going to give you our pitch for our Patreon, which is just $5. But the $5 is how much it would have cost for you to get into the one and only show put on by the band Penis Envy, with envy spelled N-V. As a joke, Layne and a couple of the other guys who worked at the Music Bank, inspired by This Is Spinal Tap, formed a band called Penis Envy. They booked a gig at an actual club, sold out the show at $5 a head. They all got wasted, walked on stage, tripped over the drums that were knocked into the crowd. Layne walks to the mic and says, "Thank you," and walks off.
Wow.
Awesome. 24, as in 24-inch waist. In his hair metal days, Layne could fit into a 24-inch waisted women's pink spandex pants.
Jesus. He's a skinny guy, but that's...
There might have been a little stretch. You really wanted to accentuate stuff, so you always bought them small.
Oh, so you're telling me he also was like rocking a huge hog too?
I didn't see any notes about the hog size, but I'll check. All right, our last number is infinity plus 1, and that is the amount of gratitude in our hearts for being able to bring you this show on a weekly basis. We absolutely love being able to learn new and fascinating stories like tonight's, and to be able to share that with you in what we hope is an entertaining way. So if you're enjoying what you're hearing, please consider signing up for our absolutely free Patreon page, where we have a poll up right now, and you can chime in and vote for whether or not you think this album should be on the list of the 1001 albums you must hear before you die. When we last left Layne, he was in a bad spot, slowly following in the footsteps of Andrew Wood, who had just died of a heroin overdose. According to Johnny Bacolas, who was in the original Sleaze lineup, when he asked Layne how his heroin use started, Layne said, quote, "Johnny, when I took that first hit for the first time in my life, I got on my knees and I thanked God for feeling good. And from there, it didn't stop."
That's brutally depressing.
Brutally depressing.
Jesus.
Almost as depressing as this album. So I'm kind of like cruising even keel with how sad the story is. But now they were on this Van Halen tour, but there are some positives. Aside from getting hooked on heroin, there are some positive things about this Van Halen tour. And one of them is one of the funnier prank stories that I've ever heard. So this is Van Halen pranking Alice in Chains. Near the end of the tour, at one single show, they lined the stage with upward-facing duct tape, so that when the band came out, they were just covered and they couldn't get it off, and it kept piling up more and more on their feet. One of their techs dressed up like Bo Peep and walked across the stage with live sheep in tow. And during their closing song of Man in the Box, Van Halen's crew comes out and starts breaking down their gear during the song. So by the end, the drummer, Sean, was left with just a snare and a kick drum. The bass was completely unplugged, and Jerry Cantrell just had like a little amp off to the side, which again, is pretty awesome.
It's pretty great. That middle one, they had to go get cheap. Like, what the fuck?
Right. Again, it's the effort, man. It's
Like,
the
that's
effort.
not that good of a joke, but like, there's a lot of work that was put into that.
There's a lot.
And the sheep are in the tour bus later, and you're like, well, they're already here. I mean, we paid for 6 hours.
All right. So Layne's drug use keeps getting worse and worse. Everyone's worried about him. His family, friends, management, and band eventually have yet another intervention. He's a chill dude, doesn't freak out, and agrees to go into rehab that day. Now, this happens in mid-1991. It's not very successful, though, and he leaves rehab and is sober for a time.
Is that time the car ride from rehab to his dealer's house? Is that the time that he was sober? I was sober for a time. It was about 36 minutes. Yeah.
I didn't say how long. It's a very good point. A time, sometime. As part of paying for rehab, he gets assigned a sponsor named Bob Timmons. Now, this guy is an addiction specialist, in quotes, so he gets paid for it. Now, Layne finds out that Timmons had been bragging at some party that he got, quote, got the lead singer of Alice in Chains. Layne hears this kind of through the grapevine. He is devastated and starts using again. So that's the dangers of these paid addiction services, right? There's a paycheck there. So somebody's getting money from people destroying their lives.
But also, you know, from that guy's standpoint, probably a career high for him. He got the lead singer of Alice in Chains. That's a big deal. He could have gotten anybody.
Right. It's a good get. So this relapse heavily influences the lyrics that we're going to hear on tonight's album. And that does bring us to tonight's album. So work on the album begins on April 27th of 1992 at One on One Studios in Los Angeles. Now, if you recall, something else happened just 2 days later. Do you recall? A grand jury had just acquitted 4 police officers of beating Rodney King. So in fact, Jerry Cantrell was in a liquor store buying beer when it got looted by a crowd. They're still loading gear in, and LA is burning.
Also, imagine you're in that liquor store and the liquor store like starts getting looted as you're like going to pay. Do you just pull the money back? And be like, oh, hold on a second here, actually. Whoop. Can we cancel that transaction? Is there, yeah.
So now that puts the recording on hold for about a week, but now let's get into the making of this album a bit. So Layne Staley and Jerry Cantrell write most of these songs. Now, we talked earlier a little bit about some of the uninspired bass work from Mike Starr. So they actually brought in a guy named Evan Sheely, who's a bass specialist and technician and tone consultant.
Does he have all those titles, Adam?
He does. He does it all, my friend. He'll teach you to play the bass, come up with the bass line, and fix your pickups.
I'm a bass specialist. Please pay me money. No fucking chance. Okay, I'm a tone consultant.
So Mike Starr is struggling to come up with bass lines for these songs that they've written. So they bring in this guy, Evan Sheely, who I suppose helps him out, gives him some ideas. But Tom, to your point, some of the ideas are just do what the guitar's doing. So
Yeah, right.
that's what a specialist gets you.
How shitty of a bass player do you have to be that's not the first thing you think of? Like, just do what the guitar does.
Should I play up here? No, dude. Just play this
Do
part.
what the guitar does, a couple of octaves lower. There we go.
Now, unfortunately, Layne is sneaking out during the riots to score heroin, and that's not a good look. He starts to kind of fall apart. They do, again, warn him, kind of give him another mini intervention, and he does clean himself up for the rest of the recording. Or at least he just doesn't let it show. Now, for the tracks, the actual recordings, they're in a big room with the drums, but everyone's amps are off in small soundproof rooms, and they're all using headphones. So basic drums, bass, guitar, scratch vocals are done in one-on-one, the studio, but then they move into El Dorado Studios in Burbank, where they track the real vocals, guitar overdubs on a 48-track digital tape machine.
Wait, and the vocals, just to be clear, are Layne and Jerry singing for most of it? The harmonies?
That's a good question. I thought most of it was... Oh, you're right. It does say backing vocals for Jerry.
But yeah, Layne, there is a lot of Layne on Layne too.
That's mostly what I can hear.
But he must have sang them live, though, right, Jerry?
Yes. Yeah, right.
Yeah, Jerry's got a good voice. He's a good singer.
For Layne's vocals, he was a little self-conscious. And again, he's probably on heroin, so he's a little out of his gourd. But singing really heavy content about the addiction that he's going through, they actually construct a small soundproof wall so that he can't be seen from the control room. So he has privacy.
Normal.
So he builds like a little shrine that's got candles, a picture of the Last Supper, and a dead puppy in a jar.
Was the puppy dead before it went in the jar?
Very odd. That I tried to find more on that one. I don't know if it's like, formaldehyde or something.
But it is also, not to go too far forward in our story, but he also seems like a guy who got into the spotlight and then was pretty immediately like, I fucking hate being in the spotlight. I do not want people to be looking at me and paying attention to me, which that's got to kind of suck.
He didn't like fame. He didn't like what came along with what he knew was people pretending to be his friends and pretending to be interested because they were just hangers on and wanted to know somebody famous. So he started kind of shunning relationships as a part of this addiction. So the band-approved final mixes are finished on July 29th, and it was sent to be mastered on August 8th and released on September 25th. Now, despite being eviscerated by the LA Times, who said, quote, "They're trying to sound like Nirvana, but sound closer to Kansas, and the group doesn't even rock." What the hell were those guys doing?
I got a lot of complaints about this album. Not rocking is not one of them at all.
Right. So despite that one shitty review, it's considered the band's magnum opus. The album enters the Billboard 200 chart at number 6 and is eventually certified quadruple platinum, meaning 4 million albums in sales. Now, before we dive into the songs, let me just do a quick rundown of what happens after this album. Alice in Chains would go on to release several more classics, including Jar of Flies, the self-titled Tripod album, that's the one with the three-legged dog, and one of the most haunting MTV Unplugged performances ever filmed. Tom, it is awesome.
So
You're right. I went back and listened to it today.
Well, and just like the context of the fact that like they didn't even know if Layne was going to come out on stage or not, and he was in a bad place, and he came out and gave that just awesome performance. It was fucking great.
That's in the number 2 spot of Unplugged, right? After Nirvana. Like if the Nirvana one didn't exist.
That might be, yeah. That's probably number 1. Yeah.
Right. That's probably taking the cake. Now, as the band's popularity exploded, Layne's addiction tightened its grip. At one point, he told Sean Kinney, "I'm never coming back. I'm not going to quit doing drugs. I'm going to die like this. This is it." After years of seclusion, he died in 2002 at the age of 34. So Layne overdosed and was found by his own mother after doing a welfare check with the police after not hearing from him for 2 weeks. So the county medical examiner determined that he died sometime on April 5th, which was 8 years to the day from when Kurt Cobain killed himself.
I feel like you're kind of downplaying it a little bit. He went into seclusion for 5 years, barely left his condo, apparently lost all of his teeth and could barely walk and was incontinent. It sounds like he just sort of, nope, that's my thing. I just do a bunch of drugs and I don't leave the house. What made them think that there was something wrong is that there was like an ATM right next to his house that he would go to every couple of days to get money to buy drugs, and he didn't for like a week, and they're like, oh, that's not good.
His accountant was like, "There's too much money in the account right now, and I don't see transactions." And so they said, something's up, and yeah, that's when they did the welfare check.
Super, super sad.
Yeah. So for many fans, that seemed like the end of the story, but instead the surviving members eventually regrouped with William Duvall and released Black Gives Way to Blue, which served as both a tribute to their fallen friend Layne and a new beginning. So not many bands survive a tragedy like that, and even fewer managed to make a decent record.
I've never heard that. Is that any good?
I've listened to a couple tracks. There was one that hit the radio, probably a decade ago. It was pretty banging. I mean, the guy can sing his ass off. It's like the dude who replaced Scott Weiland. Like, it sounds great.
Yeah.
You can tell it's the band.
Yeah. I feel like even more so than Stone Temple Pilots, like Layne Staley's
is the voice of the band. Yeah. All right, and on that happy note, what do you say we dive into some focus tracks? All right, first up, we are going to drop in a continuation of the song we played at the top. This is Dem.
Right from the jump. I mean, this record really got me on its side from moment one.
Yeah, this is a great song. And I feel like it's maybe not the best introduction of the band because it's so much more up-tempo than a lot of the stuff that you're going to get on this album, but it is a great hook. And They really hammer you with those harmonies right off the bat. Like, I believe. It's such a cool harmony. And it's like, it's a dark, depressing song. But there's just something about gonna end up a big old pile of them bones. You're just like, oh, well, I mean, that sounds funny. Yeah.
It sounds like it's from the Bayou. Right.
The main riff is in 7/8.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And then they just switch to standard time 4/4, like in the choruses, which creates a really interesting driving feel throughout the song. Like it's just pulling you forward the entire time in a very intense, can't quite relax way.
When the chorus hits, you can finally sink your teeth in because you know something's up. You know, you're listening to the verse, and just, something's weird, something's wrong. It still rocks, but man, when that chorus hits, you settle in.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't actually have this in my notes. I'm just thinking about it now. I think Jerry Cantrell solos over the 7 time.
Oh, dude, you're right.
Which almost nobody does that. Every time it comes to the solo, they always go into standard time for the solo. He solos over the 7 time, which is fucking awesome.
Well, because it is also the more rocking part in this particular case.
Yeah,
they wrote a
totally.
really good riff, and the melody over it doesn't make it feel too forced. So it makes sense for that reason. Usually they switch back to 4/4 time to give you a break and to lock into something that's a little more of a dance groove. But I would say even when they go to 4/4, you don't necessarily even notice that they've dropped back into standard time as much. And part of it is what I was saying earlier about how Layne Staley, his chorus melody doesn't start on the 1. He like waits and then gets in and it resolves on the 1. So there's just a small element of it, I think, that carries over the odd time signature feel from his vocal melody.
Yeah, that's a great point, because when he lands on bones, it's like
big old pile to them 1, 2, 3, 2. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And it just really naturally brings you back into it. So yeah, very well constructed song. Again, like I said, it fucking rocks real hard.
Written by Jerry Cantrell as well.
This is one of those times where I'm just like, how do you get that guitar tone? That guitar tone is so abrasively, aggressively awesome. I fucking love it.
It really is.
One more compliment I want to give them is that it's a short song. They get in, they get out. They rock your face off, they melt your face, and then they're gone. And even though I enjoyed the record, a complaint is that some of these songs just drag on a bit.
Yeah, this one is like 2:30. I think, and most of the others are at least 5 minutes, so it starts to weigh on you a little bit. All right, we're gonna move on to the next subtle titled song here. This one is called
the album, where a lot of the down tempo-ness was starting to wear on me a little bit, just in terms of like where it comes from. You come up with Them Bones and Damn That River, which is also a fucking great song.
Damn That River rocks.
And then Down in the Hole, that's a fantastic song. But I feel like the contrast between Down in the Hole and Junkhead, which comes up a couple of tracks later, is like Junkhead just seems less well constructed to me. Less thought through is probably not the right way to say it, but like everything about this song is down. It's all such a downer. Everything, even the riff just goes down. Like everything is so down about this song.
It's so minor. Everything is minor. Yep.
We've already commented on it, but Adam chose, other than Dem Bones, I would say he chose songs that I consider in the lower 50% of the songs on the record, of which this is a part. That said, I think this song is very, very Black Sabbath, so I'm here for that. that kind of heavy doom, slow doom thing. And I thought the drummer was really getting it here amidst this like very slow song. He's doing some really interesting things.
I had a note that this song somehow has a groove, which doesn't make sense, right? Like it's a little bit of a hesitation on the hi-hat and the kick that actually gives it kind of a little, again, a funky groove, which is odd for this kind of sludge stuff. I definitely like the chorus in this song. I think something they do well on this whole album is making the verse challenging, and then the chorus comes in, and again, you can relax a little bit. You know, there's something there there's a little bit more melody maybe. So I dug that about this tune as well.
I think that the guitar tone brightens up nicely over the chorus, which kind of pulls you out of that stuck in molasses feel that the rest of the song gives you, and it kind of comes in with a little bit of a brighter guitar, which sort of pops it. It's like a little, like, you know, pop a lemon on your salad or something like that.
Yeah, exactly what Layne was thinking as well. He was thinking of salads when he wrote this one. I laughed because this is so on the nose, but it doesn't come off as schlocky. You know what I mean? Like he's really like, there's not a lot of metaphors here. He's just like, I'm addicted to heroin and it's the greatest thing and I don't want people around.
Well, there's, you know, we talked about it on the Pogues episode. We're sort of like, oh yeah, I get that this is not, there's no frontier. This is just who you are. Like you really live this shit. Like I can tell that you really mean this and you really live this. And it's sad as fuck that that's the case. But it doesn't come off as posturing or anything like that. It comes off very genuine.
Right. He has a line in there that says, you know, he's talking to the listener. He says, your life is empty and bare, but his is good, even though he's addicted to heroin. It's just a wild song. I dug that the second chorus adds a high harmony, kind of pulls the song forward. It kind of builds a little bit because it's so down tempo. So I thought that was a pretty cool aspect of it as well. Super capable of shredding, like we said, very simple solo, very melodic solo over this. And I appreciated the constraint.
I hesitate to call it a solo, but I love the tone. That guitar tone sounds like it belongs on like one of those Dragon Force fantasy songs or something like that. It's got that like real high aspect. I don't know if it's double track guitar with a super high note over top of it, or he's using a weird pedal to get that sound. But
totally.
Yeah, when that sound came in, at first it was like a little incongruous. I was sort of like, that doesn't fit in this song. And I was like, no, actually I like it because it doesn't fit in this song.
There are any super gear nerds out there? Tell me if that's an Octavia pedal that he's playing over top with a delay. Just curious. All right, let's move this happy train along. The next song on our focus list is Dirt, the title.
A lot about gear either, but I can tell you, Jerry Cantrell loves that fucking wah pedal. I don't know if it's like I don't know if it's a auto wah or just he just has a wah that's just like glued into place for just one sound. But yeah, he uses that wah quite a lot.
The guitar tone got a little tired for me here as well, even though I do think it's overall a relatively successful song. Chorus is a little boring. I mostly picked up on the extremely depressing lyrics on this one. They really jumped out to me. And I actually thought they were pretty good lyrics.
Yeah, but they are so fucking dark. God damn. I want to taste dirty, a stinging pistol in my mouth, on my tongue. I want you to scrape me from the walls and go crazy like you've made me. What the fuck? If I was anybody in that man's life and I heard those lyrics, I'd be like, dude, we gotta get you talking to somebody, man. This is not normal.
You know what's funny? The engineer whose name escapes me, he had a lot of like an internal struggle producing this album because they did all the scratch vocals and all the music first. And then once he started hearing the actual completed vocal tracks and listening to the lyrics, he was thinking like, oh God, am I contributing to making a pro-heroin, pro-suicide album? So he was really pretty distraught.
I mean, the answer was yes, by the way. He was doing those things.
Right. But he said it wasn't until years later that kids who are listening to this would come up and be like, no, that album is the reason I never touched heroin because I heard it and thought, this is terrible. So maybe he helped out a little bit.
There we go. Yeah.
This song was actually my low light, despite it being the title track.
It's definitely not my low light, but it is a little bit of the obligatory Middle Eastern Phrygian song. that like all metal bands have to have. It reminded me slightly unfavorably of the Metallica song Wherever I May Roam.
Yes, right.
Which is a badass Metallica song, for the record.
Totally.
I don't have a ton of notes on this song either because I felt like it was just kind of okay. Not my low light. I thought it worked a little better than some of the other sort of super down tempo. I thought that the approach actually worked pretty well for it, but it doesn't jump out to me as something super memorable. And I mean, I can understand why they used it as the title track for the album, just because Dirt's a good title for an album. But like, I wouldn't listen to this song and be like, oh, you got to name your album after this,
Right. All right. Next up on our list, gents, how I really put some down songs on here. I should have thrown, from a sequencing standpoint, I should have just thrown at least one more somewhat up-tempo track on. But I thought these songs were weird and new to me, so.
I think that they do have a skill at making skulking, creepy sounding music. They know something about that. They can tap into some kind of vibe. This reminded me, as well as the next track we're going to talk about, of how experimental they could be. And that just really surprised me. It has a Primus quality or something. It's a carnival mirror, funhouse distortion, and it makes me feel uneasy.
Yeah, I just really got annoyed with the fact that the bass, the guitar, and the vocals are all following the same melody and cadence for a good portion of the song. And then the drums lock in on the same fucking, like the drums lock in with what they're doing as well. The verses of the song absolutely just dragged to me. When they got to the chorus, I thought that they did a bunch of really cool shit over the chorus, like introducing that counter melody that comes in. It's like it's like an entire separate lines that he's even saying over top of the chorus. I thought that was really, really cool. But when they went back into the verse of the song, it just lost me every time. And then it's like 5 minutes long. And I'm like, damn, like you're really wearing me down.
Yeah. If this was 3 on the nose, yeah, right. I could deal with it.
I did also list this as my low point based on the focus list you put out there, Adam, because I think that even though it's a high low point relatively, but it does, I agree with Tom in the sense that I think they take a little bit of a kitchen sink approach here as opposed to a more meticulous version of experimentalism and weirdness.
Yeah, I mean, the band's tight. The band's always tight, though. Like, frankly, again, I've been talking a good bit of shit on Mike Starr, but he's not fucking up. He's just not doing anything that's like particularly interesting most of the time, but he's fine. And Sean Kinney and Jerry Cantrell sound fucking great all the time. I think on every track, they all sound good. And it's just that when Layne and Mike are doing things that are different from what Jerry and Sean are doing, that's where the band really shines. But when they all start sort of doing the same thing, it really doesn't work for me. Yeah.
We're going to move things along to our last song on the focus list. This is...
feel like the verse of this song sounds exactly like the verse of that White Zombie song, Dragula.
Yeah, dude.
I am... Yeah. Yeah, it's not a compliment to either of those songs. It's like,
you guys sound like each other.
See, I thought this was a more well-constructed, weird song. Again, they have more art rock in them than I thought the band had. And I thought they more or less landed it here. You also get a little bit of the thrash metal thing, which I liked. I could have used more up-tempo throughout the whole record, let alone the focus list, but there's a little bit of it here. It's kind of unrecognizable from the band on some of the other tracks, though.
I agree. For a band that, like, they have a relatively consistent tonal sound in terms of, like, the tones of their instruments and the approach that they use to harmony, but they do have a lot of variety in the approaches that they take to, like, putting their parts together, especially rhythmically. And this one, yeah, I mean, I felt like when they go to that halftime over the chorus, it really sucks a lot of the energy out of the song. But I thought that the rest of this, like basically everything but the chorus, I thought was pretty good overall.
At 3:23, the change they hit is so bizarre. and I am here.
Song, but I know that there's like one time where they just randomly go into like a couple of bars of 3 before dropping into the chorus one time, where they've never done it on any of the transitions before. I don't think it's this song. It might actually have been Hate to Feel.
I didn't learn it, but it's like a shift from minor to major at a very weird moment.
Totally. This song just has a lot of stuff. See, I think this is a bit of the kitchen sink, but it works, right? There's like the weird, yeah, delay thing. There's the choppy drums. And then there's like beautiful soaring harmonies. There's that weird thing you just talked about. So this was a standout to me that I don't think I'd ever really listened to this back when I had the album years ago.
No, I agree. As you lined these songs up, I thought Hate to Feel and Sick Man were kind of two sides of a coin, and Sick Man was a much better version of this kind of idea.
Hey, I didn't want to hit the hits, man. Come on, everybody does that.
That said, it is still in the bottom 50% of all the songs on the album.
It
Sure.
is.
That's a great point.
I'm only talking to the audience who might not know the material to say that I think stuff like Dem Bones, Down in a Hole, Rooster, Wood, they're all really, really great. Damn That River, all really memorable. Yeah.
Yeah, and this album is somewhat a testament to how much work Bitch and Harmony really does to just elevate everything across the board. Because even the songs where I'm like, I don't think that they're quite landing the ship on it, I'm like, but it actually does sound fucking great, because every song has really, really, really well put together harmony. So,
all right, that's going to do it for our focus list. Now that brings us to the most important part of the show, which is where we throw it back around the studio to get those ever crucial votes from our crew on whether or not you need to hear Alice in Chains' Dirt before you die. So, Rob, what say you?
Thanks, Adam. You told a great story tonight, and it's an easy yes for me. Like I said, I came in not really knowing too much, and I really had my expectations blown away. I do think it's an important band. I think it's an important lane of music from the period that sounds distinct enough from the other music of the period that it is worth you having to listen to. And I certainly think there's enough standout tracks that you absolutely must hear, even if every single track isn't necessarily a home run.
Nice. All right. That's a yes from Rob. We're going to throw it over to Tom next.
thank you, Adam. I actually am more torn on my vote than Rob was. I'm not going to say it's an easy yes. And part of it is because I think you need to hear Alice in Chains before you die. And I do have a little bit more affinity for their, I guess, follow-up EP, Jar of Flies, that I particularly like a whole hell of a lot. But I am going to go ahead and say yes, because this is their only album on the list, and I can see how this is more representative of a lot of what they are as a band than of Jar of Flies. Alice in Chains and Dirt sound a little bit more like each other, and I think Jar of Flies is maybe a little bit of a departure. So I think they're an important band. I think they show the breadth of what grunge can be, and I think you should definitely listen to them. And just make sure that you have like friends and family and a support system around you when you listen to this, because it's gonna bring you down a little bit.
Loved ones. Yes. I will need a palate cleanser this week, something bright and poppy. So that's 2 yeses. So technically my vote doesn't matter, but I will still register a yes. And I will echo basically everything that Rob and Tom said. I think that this album represents a very unique sound that came out of that grunge era, and they own it. You hear a note of this, and you can probably tie it to Alice in Chains. So it's a yes. It's across the board. 3 yeses. Congratulations, Alice in Chains. You did it, boys. Dirt on the list. All right. Did we get it right? Did we get it wrong? You can get in touch with us 2 ways. First, we've got a listener poll up over on our Patreon feed right now. Head over there and vote. Let us know what we got right or wrong over there. You can also drop us an email at 1001albumcomplaints@gmail.com. Now, speaking of emails, I'm looking and I see Rob has a huge bulge in his spandex, which I can only assume is an extremely large pile of listener mail. So, Rob, release the hog and let us know what our listeners are saying.
Thank you so much, Adam. Space Hog incoming. Since we just covered these 90s legends, I wanted to read some 90s related feedback we've gotten on the show. So listener HK writes in about our recent song battle bonus show where we covered 90s one-hit wonders in a bracket-style competition. You can check that out if you like, but he is writing about that. He says, hey guys, loved the 90s one-hit wonder song battle. You Get What You Give by New Radicals is pure cheese, but it is an absolute earworm and the ultimate guilty pleasure. Fun fact, after pulling the plug on New Radicals, Greg actually pulled a genius grift, Greg Alexander from the New Radicals. He just cloned You Get What You Give about 10 more times, tweaking the paint job, and handed it off to Mel C of the Spice Girls, Ronan Keating, Rod Stewart, Santana, and several others. It is the exact same rolling stomp, the same 2 slash chords, and usually a similar intro. I have compiled a playlist. All you need to do is spin the first 20 seconds of these 8 tracks, all written by Greg in a post-New Radicals world. Listen for yourself.
Yes!
Love the show. Keep it up. And of course, we have linked that playlist, and I did listen to at least the first 20 seconds, and he has a very compelling point, audience.
Dude, that's awesome.
They all sound eerily familiar.
That's some fantastic, well-researched shit talking there. Good job. Good job on that.
Thank you for that. And we have one more here, which is listener Hank writes, subject line, thanks for the reminder of why I hate Billy Corgan.
Needed a reminder. All right.
I discovered your podcast about a month ago. I'm really enjoying it. Your episode on Siamese Dream reminded me of how I went from a Smashing Pumpkins super fan to wanting to punch Billy Corgan in the scrotum all in about 1 hour. You see, I saw them in New Orleans in 1993. It was by far one of the best shows I've ever seen. I had been a big fan since Gish. They played about 2 hours, a couple encores. It was great. I saw them a few months later in Mississippi. Now, by that time, the song Disarm had become popular, but I convinced a few of my friends to make the road trip, telling them how great they were. Some people in the crowd started a mosh pit when the band played Disarm, which I thought was pretty stupid. Then the band from stage mocked the crowd for only knowing the hits. Then Billy Corgan said, "This goes out to you from the bottom of my rotten heart." They played 2 more songs and ended the show 45 minutes after it started. That's right, a 45-minute concerts. All these years later, I still hate Billy Corgan. I still insist that he owes me a refund of my, wait for it, $17 ticket.
Whoa.
For cutting the show short. Anyway, keep up the great work.
I'd say it is sad that as a, almost 45-year-old man, I'd be like, 45-minute concert sounds pretty good, actually.
All
Get home
right.
early, my back doesn't hurt,
Get home, right? Don't have to stand still for 3 hours. Yeah.
You know what's? I brought it up in part because I thought it was actually a compelling topic. Because to me, at a glance, yes, I'm also 46. 45 minutes sounds like a pretty good set time to me. Like that is kind of the time for a set. And if Tom and I play a show, that's the set time we're playing. And I bet when Adam played shows, that equaled about 1 set. So it doesn't seem that crazy. I heard another random friend mentioning that they went to see like a big pop star, one of these big arena shows not that long ago, and they were complaining that they played 90 minutes only. And I was like, fuck, that's a lot, man.
That's a long time to be on stage.
So are our expectations being completely changed and warped these days? Because back in the day, I remember people used to talk about guys like Springsteen would play for 2.5 hours. And I think even at 18, you'd be like, well, that's cool, but also too much.
Leave me wanting more, buddy.
Like I remember having that thought. But, then Taylor Swift is putting on this 3-hour show or whatever she's doing.
To be fair, though, Rob, you and I did see Springsteen together when we were about, maybe 20 years old or something like that. And he put on a very long show, and it was fucking awesome. Totally killed it. And we also used to go see Fish play for hours and hours on end. But I definitely look back at that now, and I'm like, I would actually prefer to have just a really tight 45 minutes to an hour long set. Just fucking kill it for that amount of time and get off stage.
Okay, Phish is another great example, though, because most of their shows, they play 2 sets with a set break, and the sets are about an hour long. I do think about an hour is set length. I get it. Everything's context. If you're going to see Smashing Pumpkins, you paid a bunch of money, $17 whole. Maybe there's no opener. You need more entertainment for your money. But I think in general, I just got to put it out there in the world and dispute Hank's account a little bit. I get that he was expecting more, and it's about that expectation, and maybe Billy was having an off night or hated the crowd or whatever. But that kind of feels like a standard set to me.
But he didn't factor in that he had to stand 45 minutes in line at the Ticketron at the Strawbridge and Clothier to get the tickets.
Well, the other thing is that strap in, boys, because all 3 of us have tickets to go see the Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness tour, where they're going to play the entire album, which is an hour and 20 minutes, and then another set afterwards.
Yes! Do we have seats or do we have to stand?
We do have seats, Adam.
Yes.
And since we're announcing this, not just all 3 of us, all 6 of us will be in the same place at the same time for possibly the first time in decades.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, man. We'll do an audio log or something like that.
Yes, indeed. But okay, love getting your mail to tell us what we got right, what we got wrong. Send it on over to 1001albumcomplaints@gmail.com.
All right. Thank you, Rob. We've just got one thing left to do, and that is to get our homework assignment for next week. So I'm going to throw it over to Tom.
Thank you, Adam. I thankfully was able to give the Albinator the night off. It's been a little stressed, needed a little time to decompress. Because we are...
Hey, listen to this album.
Yeah, right.
I needed a hug.
We are covering something not at all whiny. That's great. We're going to be covering the next in our summer series of glaring omissions picks. And this time, the fans have voted on Alan's pick of August and everything after by Counting Crows.
Oh.
Yeah. And you know what? I'll have to announce to everybody, I am unfortunately not going to be on that episode. I know some people in the Patreon were hoping to hear me just like completely rip and shit on this album. And I will tell you, I have a fucking huge soft spot for this album. And I listened to it as a whiny little bitchy depressed teenager so much.
Same here. I mean, I don't want to spoil it. All right.
I was going to say, I think Patreonites might have misjudged our weak spots for whiny 90s rock.
Yeah. Oh, that should be super interesting.
All righty, folks. There you go. You've got your homework assignment. It's August and Everything After by the Counting Crows. There you go. All right. Well, that is going to do it for us. So for everyone here at the show, I have been Adam.
I've been Rob.
And I'm Tom.
I want you to push me.